The Secure Dynamics TechCast today features Les Correa. Les is the global head of application security at the Estee Lauder Companies. Welcome, Les.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Ashwin. Yes, I'm part of the Estee Lauder Enterprise Cybersecurity and Risk team, and I transitioned from security architecture, engineering, and ops. Like I've been in the industry for a while, from operations to development to networking, and back now into application security as such. Okay, it's across the globe, so I've been around, and I'm not a new kid in the block. Let's put it that way. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. And I think that leads extremely well into the next question, which is really somebody with your background and the pivots that you've gone through in your life, but also applying that to a movement that has become extremely popular, DevSecOps. And while it may be for the people inside, hey, this is obvious and we should have been there, clearly for lots of people still aren't there, right? They're not even into DevOps, much less so DevSecOps. So talk a little bit about how and where we are today, but more importantly, why did this journey start in the first place and how did we evolve to this point?
Sure. To lend some context, and I'll delve into the answer a little later, I need to put some context, right? So if you look at the 70s and 80s, development was mainly on mainframes. You had COBOLs, DB2 on MBS. Cycle times were 1 to 5 years for development, and costs were anywhere between 1 million US dollars to 100 million. Then came to the 90s. I'm obviously cutting this short, okay? In the 90s, you had development, which was client server basically, and you had C, C++, Oracle, for example. And cycle times were reduced from 4 to 12 months, and costs were anywhere between 100,000 to 10 million. In the 2000s, there was some change where technology was commoditized into hardware, software, and cloud deployments, where you had MySQL, Ruby, PHP, cycle times reduced even further from 2 to 12 weeks, and costs from 10,000 to 1 million. So this whole new landscape of time to market became crucial for businesses. That's the business landscape. And need to fast fail, fail often, lean methods, and develop incrementally. These were changes from how things were done previously. Security became a competitive advantage, and the costs and resource pressures increased. So now to get to your question about the background from DevOps leading to DevSecOps, I think the father and most developers today will consider Edward Deming from the 1940s to be the father of DevSecOps, and there's a reason for this thinking. He introduced lean manufacturing after World War II. This is post World War II, to create this just-in-time kind of thinking in manufacturing. There's an excellent book about his methods. It's called The Essential Deming. So if you translate that manufacturing supply chain to a software supply chain, treating it as a factory by embedding quality in the beginning and reducing the suppliers. So there are two aspects: quality, which can be considered security as well because it is quality, and reducing the number of suppliers so that you can manage better and less defects, if anything. Toyota is a prime example of a success of embarking on that journey. And this is going back many, many years. But then back in '84, Eli Goldratt wrote a book called The Goal, which is a theory of constraints. And I'm going chronologically so that you understand this. Okay? Theory of constraints, where a system cannot run faster than its slowest bottleneck.
Right.
So this brings into the concept of every complex system has multiple linked activities, but one which acts as a constraint needs to be acted upon, and then you go on to the next and so on. Then in 2000 came the agile thinking and principles and practices, where deployment and development and deployment was in weeks and months. So what is agile, which embrace constant change and embrace the voice of the customer to garner requirements and feedback.
Mhm.
In 2009 was the big shocking thing where I think it was a Velocity conference by the O'Reilly
Mhm.
group, where Flickr, where the folks at Flickr spoke about, making 10 deploys a day, which kind
Wow.
of stunned everybody.
Yeah.
And about the same time, we had all these other folks in the development world where, you had several conferences where the DevOps Days, which still continues up to today, and
Mhm.
several other uh, things subsequently, like, the all day DevOps and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Then in 2010, by the way,
Uh-huh.
was the big bang for DevOps. And I'm getting into the
Yeah.
DevSecOps.
Yeah.
By the way, DevOps and DevSec, there was already a change towards that, the security thinking, okay?
Mhm.
Was the big bang where, thrust towards commoditized hardware, software, and cloud deployments in hours and minutes. So there was a concept of, continuous integration, testing,
Yep.
and delivery using DevOps principles and practices to deploy hundreds of changes a day, which was unheard of, if you talk about the legacy, and that's why I spoke about the
So
legacy.
let's a quick interjection, right? So going back and where you're in 2010, as we're speaking about it, was there any early thought leaders, and you mentioned Flickr, were there any thought leaders who were thinking of security at that point, or is it purely just time to market and lean methodology?
Oh, like I said, there was, folks like, Flickr and I'll lend you, there was Gene,
Uh-huh.
there was Gene Kim, Jex Humble, Patrick Dubois. There are several names, okay?
Okay.
And I might have missed some, and I don't want to, and that's the least I want to do.
Yeah.
Is, there was already thinking going on about, hey, first, because it was embedding the DevOps was embedding operations, which was the bottleneck
Mhm.
to development. But then they realized that, hey, oh, but by the way, DevOps is more about, is much more about cultural transformation as it is about technology,
Got
right?
it. Yep.
But with DevOps and the concept of embedding dev and ops, you still had to meet the security objectives.
Yeah.
Until then, it ended up security being like these gates by which you had to pass and in phases. So,
Yeah.
I want to just digress a little bit. Like in 2013, there was a nice, very good book called The Phoenix Project
Mhm.
that actually everyone should read. It's a
Oh,
very
it's a
nice.
fantastic book. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes.
So, and there are several authors there, but
Yeah.
it talks about, it's written as a novel, but it's written really well.
Yep.
And then Shannon Leeds actually wrote the DevSecOps manifesto in 2015, by the way.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Okay. And then in 2017 was another excellent book called the DevOps Handbook, which also talks about agility. And at that time, they were already talking about embedding security and so on. Again, Gene Kim and a few others were involved as well. Okay. So what is DevSecOps? Building. I think the changes started happening already around 2014, 2015 timeframe, although there were changes even before that, but the struggles continued and now it's getting more efficient as we go because, and I'll tell you why and all that stuff a little later, but so what is DevSecOps? It's building quality. You remember Demings?
Mhm.
Right from the beginning, and quality is synchronous with security by shifting left. When I say right from the beginning, it means if you start everything from the left and going right, that's the meaning of shifting left, okay? So build into the software delivery process instead of making it a separate phase that happens downstream of the development process. So that's kind of a nutshell of the history of where we are and how it came about.
Wow. So that's a lot to unpack. And I know we're going to have a series of this, but I want to leave the viewers with one kind of a teaser why they should be coming back is one of the things that is still prevailing, I don't know whether to call it wisdom or not, but it's definitely how things operate is a breach happens as an example in a particular industry, right? I mean, doesn't matter if it's retail or finance. And then all of a sudden there is questions about why it happened. And the competitors suddenly use that for right reasons, probably, as a budget seeking exercise to go and actually fix stuff for which they never got any budget for. So again, this is just a teaser for the subsequent episode. So the question really is, you mentioned cultural shift, right? So is this still one of those things for companies which are not embracing this? Is do you need to have one of those unfortunate events to happen for people to wake up, or is there a groundswell awareness? And you mentioned all day DevOps, are these movements getting enough momentum that the cultural shift is happening without any unforeseen incident that needs to happen for this to?
It's twofold, right? One of it is, I think, time to market. So there's that speed that has to happen,
Yeah.
right? But there are breaches and there's exposures create big. You hear about the Equifax and
Yep.
all that stuff. And once you hear, bigger companies are always
Targets.
wary about getting
Yeah.
caught in this whole mess. But as a security practitioner, you have to be proactive. And I think today's CISOs are more, understand the need to be very proactive. And I can delve into a little further, but essentially, there's a need. For example, because we spoke about commoditized hardware, software, and
Yeah.
cloud deployment in hours and minutes, right? So things are happening at speed. So by embedding security at the onset in every state only helps the CISO, for example. It has to happen, or any C-suite, a company by itself.
Got it.
I hope I answered that
No,
question.
no, absolutely. And again, like you said, the mind shift and like you said, even though it's at warp speed, I think the attackers are also taking advantage of DevOps, right? So, and which is sometimes hard to embrace. Like, hey, it's not just the good guys. Everybody has access to the cloud. Everybody has access to CI/CD. So, I know we have lots more to unpack. Again, I thank you for joining me today on a Sunday. Les, and we will come back for an unpacking other aspects of DevOps in the future.
Oh, thank you for that. And actually, I just want to add one more quick point.
Absolutely.
You brought up an interesting point, because as thinkers and practitioners, right? Actually, the bad attackers are better at collaborating and communicating than us.
Yeah.
Because they have to only break through once, right? So it's an important aspect. Not many people get it. Today, exploits happen in 3 days after a vulnerability is known. But hey, in the future episodes, we can talk about some details there. Okay. Thank you.
No, that's actually a great point. I think the collaborative nature of the attacker community and the need to find one opening and then being able to spread that on the dark web. I think, there's tons to unpack. Again, thanks for your time, Les. Looking forward to future conversations.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Ashwin.
Thank you.